So we've talked about the past, the present, and the future of Gears of War and where this series may be going, in the foreseeable future. And what I got to say, guys, is that Gears of War is really in a very weird state. Obviously, I've been one and I've been overly critical of the community as a whole for the demise of Gears of War as a franchise. I look at, so much complaining and things of that nature that come into play within the Gears of War scene. And it's really disheartening and it's unfortunate, all the backlash towards the coalition, the actual developers of this game. The reason why this series came back to life from the grave was because of them. And so it's been really unfortunate. Now, I do understand that there are things wrong with Gears of War as a whole. The more recent Gears of War games. I know that there's things wrong with it, and it's obviously okay to voice your frustrations, but it's the way in which you do it. And I've stated that a number of times, guys. Well, we know that the Coalition is working on Gear 6 at this point in time, which obviously I'm incredibly excited about Gear 6. I can't wait for this game to come out. However, there's been a lot of talk that, maybe, just maybe, that Gear 6 and Gear 7 may very well be put off. Those two games have been confirmed by Rod Ferguson, who was the studio head at the Coalition before he went on to Blizzard. And so we have two more titles coming, but the question that really remains is, are those games still going to be on if the community continues the way it's going, the way that it's just become really toxic in a major way? And look, guys, the Gears of War community is not the only toxic community. There are tons of communities out there that are toxic around their games. You could even look at games like Call of Duty. It has a very toxic community at times. But the difference is that Call of Duty as a whole is so much bigger than Gears of War that it can sustain that. It can have, communities that are toxic, because there's other communities that aren't that way. Whereas with Gears of War, when there's a toxicity in the community, it's infectious and it's something that really has hurt the scene in a major way. People move on to other games and such. And, it's really a lose-lose at the end of the day. Well, one of the things also that people are really bringing up a lot in the community is that the Gears of War esports scene is going to be going away, like it's done. Because of Halo Infinite coming out, Gears of War esports is going to be, kind of put to the sidelines, whereas Halo Infinite will be front and center, which I think is completely, if it's true, I think that is very disheartening. That is very, in my opinion, something that definitely should not happen. I think that Halo Infinite certainly needs to be a part of esports and have, a place there, because it's one of the originals of, esports as a whole. But Gears of War, make no mistake about it, guys, needs to coexist in the world of esports. I mean, this is a very unique esport. I think it needs to continue in a major way, and people need to be supporting it. I mean, if you want to see Gears esports just, go away, then, there you have it. But I believe that if you are a passionate person who is passionate about Gears of War as a title and such, and you care about this franchise still, we have to just be, obviously voicing our frustration, but also basically just stating what we'd like added, what we, that we want the Gears esports scene to continue, which I believe it needs to continue. It's a very important game, in my opinion, to the ecosystem of esports. It's just very unique. And sure, they've made mistakes along the way with Gears esports, but at the same time, I think that Gears esports has absolutely been much bigger than Halo esports. Halo has had nothing for a long time, guys, whereas Gears of War has had, has had a lot of, really successful events. It's very big in Mexico, which is amazing. And I just think that there is a passionate fan base here still with Gears of War. Now, that leads me to the second part of this, which is people leaving Gears esports to go to Call of Duty, which is another thing that I think, when I look at the landscape of gaming as a whole, it does make sense for a lot of these players that play, Gears of War to move over to Gears of War, or move over to Call of Duty, because they have a God-given ability when it comes to, Gears of War, but they're really just good at video games in general. And so a lot of those guys are going to be able to translate right over to Call of Duty and probably make a pretty nice name for themselves in the Challenger series. So does that make sense? I do think that it makes sense that some players should go over to the challengers in the Call of Duty League because of how much bigger it is and how much money's involved and things of that nature. But I do think that Gears of War, sure, there's going to be some guys who go, and move on to Call of Duty, but then there's going to be others that are going to start rising to the top of the Gears esports ladder. And so I think it's really important that there's more of an emphasis next season with Gears Esports on individual players. Sure, that is, sometimes how the league has kind of promoted it, but I think that these players need to be more front and center instead of just the team as a whole, more like individual players, similar to like what the NBA does. You all obviously have, great teams out there, like say, for example, the Los Angeles Lakers. Sure, you got the entire team, but there's a real emphasis on Anthony Davis and LeBron James. What I'm getting at here, guys, is if you really rally around those guys and you rally around, the big dogs in Gears of War, the up-and-comers, it's going to help continue. People will start really enjoying, individual players. The Call of Duty League does a really good job of it, having individual personalities. But this also is a responsibility of the players as well. They also need to be creating content. They need to be streaming and such, building an audience so that people want to watch the esports scene of Gears of War and kind of watch their favorite players do what they do best. And so, look, is Gears of War esports going anywhere? In my opinion, I do not think it is. I believe it needs to coexist with other esports out there. Sure, it's never going to be the biggest esport in the world, right? It's a very violent game and a violent esport, but it's also, a lot of trash talk and such, which happens in any, esport, but it's really elevated in a major way with Gears of War. And so I just think it needs to coexist though, guys. It's very important, especially for Microsoft as well. I mean, this is, when we talk about the juggernauts for Xbox as far as exclusives are concerned, you're looking at Halo and Gears of War. Now, sure, Fable looks like it's going to be coming up as well, but there's not going to be an esports scene around Fable unless they change that, which I don't think they will. But those are your two big heavy hitters, and I think it needs to continue. And there just needs to be more support on it, even though they're doing a pretty good job in my opinion. But I think that there needs to be even more support for the Gears of War esports scene. And with Gears 6, very well, maybe they will kind of put more emphasis on the esports side. I think it's like a learning process. It's kind of, you crawl before you walk before you run before you sprint. And it's kind of like that, I feel, with the Coalition. They're trying to get their bearings. They're trying to figure it out as we go. And they're getting better slowly but surely. So that was my thoughts, guys. I think Gears of War esports needs to coexist. It needs to stay around. This is a very important esport in my personal opinion. I'd love to hear yours, though, in the comment section down below. Do you want to see Gears esports go the way of the dinosaur? Or do you want it to continue in a major way into Gears 6? Let me know. And for more Gears of War and Gears of War esports content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.